In this tutorial, I will be covering how to add an existing test. So if you've already created a test in your Blackboard and you just need to deploy it to a content area, these are the steps you would follow. In this example, I'm actually going to be adding the syllabus and syllabus certification quiz. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my Start Here tab, and I'm going to click on my syllabus and syllabus quiz certification module. And now I'm in the content area where I would like to deploy my exam. So I'm going to hover over assessments. I'm going to click on test. And then I'm going to select my syllabus quiz from the add an existing test. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill out the instructions for the test. This would be a good place for you to maybe put what materials are going to be covered, or if there's any special any special options for the test, if it's open book, if it's closed book. All of that can go into the description. So since this is a syllabus quiz, I'm actually going to copy what I normally have in my syllabus quiz for the description. And then what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to go ahead and make the link available. I'm going to, for this particular exam, I'm actually going to make, I'm going to give the students multiple attempts. I'm going to allow them unlimited attempts. You also have the option to add an announcement for this test. That's completely up to you. And I would also recommend showing the students the instructions before they begin the exam as well. And then since the syllabus quiz, I'm actually going to want to score the attempts using the highest grade. Now, if I only had a single attempt, you'll notice that this is now grayed out. The score attempts using is now grayed out, and I don't have an option. So I'm going to check the multiple attempts again, and then I'm going to select the highest grade. I do not recommend using forced completion. Forced completion punishes students that don't have the best internet connection. Originally, it was built for proctored exams where you had labs where you had several hundred students in there. And basically, it would prevent students from being able to navigate to other browsers. Well, or close out of the browser and get back into the exam. Well, now that computers will allow you to do that, it's really kind of a useless setting. And if a student has any kind of internet connection disruption, even if it's brief, it will automatically kick them out of the exam, and then they would have to start the exam over again. So I don't recommend using this setting. In fact, if you leave the setting unchecked and you have a student with an issue, you can let the students know in the instructions that they can go ahead and open the browser again or into a different browser and go back into that exam and go ahead and complete it. And it causes a lot less stress on the students. It's a lot less stress on you. It just makes things a lot easier. So please do not use the forced completion. Now you have the option to use the timer. Now, since this is the syllabus quiz, I'm not going to use a timer on the test, but you also have the option to auto submit if you would like. And again, that's completely up to you, but since this is the syllabus quiz, I'm not going to use that particular option. You also have the option to display after and display until. If this were a normal exam, I would highly recommend using those settings. However, again, this is a syllabus quiz, so I'm not going to use those particular settings. Now, the test availability exceptions is where you would add a student if, say, for instance, you have a student with a disability and you needed to give that student additional time or needed to open up the dates for that particular student. You could do that through the test availability exceptions. So if I go up here and I set my timer and I have this particular student with a disability and my preview user needs time and a half to take this particular exam. Well, since my timer is set to 60 minutes, I'm going to set my timer for this student to 90 minutes. You'll notice that the timer did not show up until I checked the box up here. The options down here for attempts, timer, forced completion, those do not display unless they have been checked up at the top. So again, for this particular one, I'm going to remove the timer. And if I need to remove the exception, I just click on my delete, and then that exception will be deleted. Now I have the option to do a due date. I highly recommend using a due date on all assignments in Blackboard. The reason this is so important is that students can use the course catalog to keep up with when their assignments are due. I don't recommend using the do not allow students to start the test if the due date has passed. It would be better to put a display until date, which is going to hide the exam from the students once that date passes, than it would be to use this particular option. I've seen a lot of confusion with this option. Sometimes people forget that they have to uncheck that, or if there's a student making up the exam, they can't get in. I don't recommend doing any kind of changes to the self-assessment options. Well, since this is a syllabus quiz, you actually can uncheck this particular box, but in a normal setting, you would not touch either of these options. You certainly do not want to hide the results from the test from the instructor view. This is something that will delete if Blackboard tries to go back in and reverse. So it's really important that you don't use that particular option. That particular option was built to be used with surveys. And then you've got the show test results and feedback. So to minimize student cheating, this is where you can actually go in and control what the students see after they submit. So if I've got my regular exam, after they submit, the only thing that I want them to see at this point is going to be their score. So they will always be able to see their score. Now, if I want to allow them additional feedback, say once all the attempts are graded for the other students, I can select a second rule and go to after attempts are graded, and then select what feedback I would like for them to see. I highly recommend using this particular option whenever you are setting up your test. This controls students not being able to work together in groups and collude and get higher scores than they're actually, the material that they're actually learning. So whenever you go to set up your your test, I'm sorry, leave after submission here, uncheck everything on top, and then add your second rule, and then from there you can select what feedback you would like for them to receive. Now the test presentation, that's completely up to you. I don't recommend using prohibit backtracking unless you're trying to set the students up for, say, they're going to be taking a certification exam and you're trying to mimic that particular setting. Or if you do want to use prohibit backtracking, this would be another really good thing to add into the description of the particular exam, so that way students don't continue to click the back button. I typically don't recommend this because when students hit the back button in their browser, it can actually skip questions. So like I said, unless you're using it to mimic a setting that would be similar to like a certification exam, I don't necessarily recommend using that. And then you've also got the option to do all at once, one at a time, or you can also randomize questions. And those are completely up to you if you would like to use those. So now that we've gone through and we've selected the options that we would like for this particular exam, we'll just go ahead and click submit. And now our syllabus quiz is listed in the module and it's ready for students to take.